Welcome to the video, guys. We all remember the recent virtue signalling nonsense promoted by the media, politicians, and of course various different companies and organisations that has now passed like a fart in the wind, because 99% of the country never supported it regardless of race, despite the media pushing it for a couple of months with the help of low-life celebrities and organisations, as I said. We had a few British companies jumping on the bandwagon like the snivelling shitweasels we all know they are, and obviously the woke yank ones were all over it like a fly around shit. But it seems at least one of the American companies has decided it should now involve itself in British politics by attacking the government for trying to stop the debacle in the Channel. Despite the fact, as we all know, the government has done little more than a piss poor attempt at defending our borders from the invasion of boat wankers we have been dealing with this year. But Ben and Jerry's thought it was a good idea to go on Twitter and virtue signal their lives away yet again, which was obviously called out by Priti Patel and the UK government among many others. But I have to say, their eagerness to jump in and defend these so-called migrants is rather funny, because a few years ago they was taken to task for using and abusing migrant workers in the dairy industry over in the US, despite screaming about their fair trade ice cream, as we all know, and it says on the wrapper. But as I said, Priti Patel has obviously come out and criticised Ben and Jerry's, as of many others, which this Daily Mail article points out with its headline, "Freeze them out, call for boycott of woke US ice cream company Ben and Jerry's for condemning UK's attempts to curb Channel migrants," and a reminder of how former hippie founders sold out to multinational Unilever. Calls have been made to boycott woke Ben and Jerry's after the outspoken ice cream giant criticised Priti Patel's handling of the migrant crisis. The company's UK branch noisily passed moral judgment on the Home Secretary's call for the Navy to halt the stream of migrants crossing the Channel on Twitter. Social media users are now lashing out at Unilever-owned Ben and Jerry's, founded as an ice cream parlour in Vermont by hippies Ben Cohen and Jerry Greenfield in 1978, for virtue signalling after it criticised the government's lack of humanity, which, as I said, is rather funny considering what they have done before. Twitter accounts are demanding a boycott of the company, which is facing accusations of launching a shameless marketing attempt during a heatwave, which probably they are actually when you think about it. It hadn't even occurred to me, but it would make sense. Though, as we all know, the real world ain't Twitter. They ain't even going to hear about it, and most of them are not going to care. They're just going to think you're a bit of an idiot, because people really don't support illegal immigrants crossing the Channel, that is for sure. It's a very niche group of leftist losers that support this sort of shit, not the majority of the country. Ben & Jerry's, which likes to preach about racial and climate justice, LGBT equality and democracy, has been slammed for going on a ridiculous rant by social media users who denounced the ice cream makers' woke hypocrisy. Some cited its acquisition by Anglo-Dutch giant Unilever, which is mired in environmental controversies, for $325 million in the year 2000, while others shared articles exposing Ben & Jerry's past business with dairy farm suppliers in Vermont, which treated migrant workers appallingly until 2017, which is what I covered earlier, and I showed you one of the articles on the screen from. Sources close to Priti Patel branded Ben & Jerry's overpriced junk food, while ministers angrily told the ice cream maker to keep out of politics, which obviously they should do, but we know these companies in 2020, they don't do that. We see the FA, Premier League and all the rest of them do it with the BLM bullshit. And here we have a bunch of Tory MPs coming out on Twitter and absolutely shitting on Ben and Jerry's. James Cleverly here. Can I have a large scoop of statistically inaccurate virtue signalling with my grossly overpriced ice cream, please? Well done, James Cleverly. I like that one. That's good. You're here for ice cream, not moral judgment. Thank you very much, Brent Bradley said. Jackie Doyle Price. Who cares what Ben and Jerry's think? Their ice cream isn't even as good as Rossi's anyway. Just fucking putting them down. I love it. Stop posing as some kind of hippie ice cream play. You're now wholly owned by a massive global conglomerate called Unilever. Perhaps if it paid the taxes HMRC thinks you should pay, we could afford to accommodate many more asylum seekers. No, Andrew Neil, we fucking can't. Hey Ben and Jerry, nice virtue signal. It's a shame your company was using modern day slaves to milk cows in Vermont. Hashtag hypocrisy. Here's a little story you should read, which is the one I showed you earlier. Julia Hartley Brewer's come out. Hey Ben and Jerry's, your opinion on ice cream flavours are welcome, but I'm not sure virtue signal about border controls is really your area of expertise. Actually, it might be, since they've used and abused illegal migrants for years, it would appear, especially if that article is anything to go by. She continued though, get back to freezing ice cream and leave the woke politics to someone else, yeah, like Owen Jones or some soy boy loser like that, so we can take the piss out of them instead. Despite its homely sounding name, Ben & Jerry's is actually a subsidiary of Unilever, Britain's fourth largest company. And it's just the latest example of a company spouting woke, Guardian-esque tosh. Wonder what would happen if as a result consumers boycotted their products. Well, maybe we will find out because hopefully people go and do it. Continues here, we've already read James Cleverly's one, we won't bother going on with that. Chris Phillip, immigration minister, told the ice cream maker to stick to ice cream, adding they're fleeing France, which is safe, civilised and has a good asylum system, as we all know, which is something we've all been screaming about for weeks and months now. Last year, the UK made 20,000 asylum grants. We are the only G7 country to meet the 0.7% aid target and have run the largest refugee resettlement scheme in Europe over the last 5 years. Stick to ice cream. We read Tory MP Brent Bradley and Jackie Doyle's one. Speaking to reporters in Dover, Nigel Farage said, with all the tough talk and with it happening every day, it's becoming a bit of a national humiliation. Which, let me tell you, is already gone past becoming one. We are in the middle of a national humiliation and it's happening every day, slapping the people of this country straight in the face. Furthered, of course, by woke wankers like Ben & Jerry's. Until people know that coming via this route, they will not be allowed to stay, they will just keep on coming, which is what everyone has been saying for ages and is kind of obvious. The former Brexit leader also defended the use of the word invasion to describe the migrants arriving in the UK by sea. I said in April I thought there would be a summer invasion, by which I meant a very large number of people illegally landing on our beaches now, he said. As it is, some land on beaches but most get picked up before. I think it is a pretty reasonable use of the word, yes, as do I, which is why I've used it many times. The backlash mounted after Twitter accounts shared articles explaining how hippie Ben & Jerry's came under pressure in 2017 to ensure dairy farms supplying it with milk in Vermont provided humane conditions for their migrant workers, who were actually illegal migrant workers if you read the Guardian article that they are talking about. Ben & Jerry's says it is an ice cream maker which behaves like a social justice organisation. According to its former chairman, Jeff Furman, the company sells ice cream to be able to fuel its advocacy, which shows exactly why we shouldn't be spending our money with these low-life scumbags. I think most of you would agree. On its website, Ben & Jerry's lists issues we care about, which include democracy, climate change, racial justice, LGBT equality and refugees. The company has latched on to the Black Lives Matter protests which are sweeping across the US and Britain, saying in a statement released after the death of George Floyd was a son, a brother, a friend, a father and also a crackhead. The police officer who put his knee on his neck, we're not going to bother going through all that, I'm sick of hearing about this arsehole that has absolutely nothing to do with the UK. The ice cream company had been woke for BLM in 2016, we already know that didn't go very far. The spat with Priti Patel began after Ben & Jerry's UK Twitter account suggested that ministers should make it easier for refugees to reach Britain. It tweeted, people wouldn't make dangerous journeys if they had any other choice. The UK hasn't resettled any refugees since March. But wars and violence continue. What we need is more safe and legal routes. Well, why don't you spend all your money on being ever so woke and saving the countries that they're all coming from so they don't need to come here? No, I bet you don't do that. I bet you would rather sell your ice cream to them so you can try and make a little bit more money to pay your shareholders, because we know you don't care about any of this bullshit. And obviously here we have the list of tweets which you've already seen, but I will quickly read through. Hey, Priti Patel, we think the real crisis is our lack of humanity for people fleeing war, climate change and torture. We pulled together a thread for you. People wouldn't make dangerous journeys if they had any other choice. The UK hasn't resettled any refugees since March, but wars, violence, we already read that, which is obviously bollocks because they're coming from France, which is a safe country. It's kind of obvious. People cannot be illegal, and it is enshrined in the 1951 Refugee Convention that crossing a border illegally should not impact your asylum claim. It should when you've come from safe countries, you complete and utter idiots. And as a matter of fact, I'm not even going to bother reading any more of their bullshit, it's just complete and utter woke nonsense, as we already know. A source close to Miss Patel said Priti is working day and night to bring an end to these small boat crossings, yeah, of course she is, which are facilitated by international criminal gangs and are rightly a serious concern to the British people. If that means upsetting the social media team for a brand of overpriced junk food, then so be it. That I do 100% agree with, and I actually think that Priti Patel should go along that lines, come out and tell them to fuck off. Miss Patel has also asked officials to look into whether to use the Royal Navy. I covered that the other day. And that is the end of the article there. Well, I've got to say, that was a rather long article, but at least it was taking Ben & Jerry's to task for its complete and utter bullshit, butting its nose in where it's not wanted or needed. I mean, let's be honest, this is an American-made food company that has been bought out by a multinational corporation talking a load of smack about migrants when it's abused them itself before. It is the peak of woke hypocrisy, but nothing new for these utter losers at the end of the day. Now, if ever you actually ate their ice cream, which to be honest I really didn't, I think I've had it a couple of times at most, then maybe you should consider not bothering to support them again, especially with the shit that they are coming out with here. UK immigration policy has got absolutely fuck all to do with them, the same as it has any other company in this country or any other one around the world.
There is a pattern consistent throughout history of oppressed people turning on the oppressors, slaves against their owners, the peasantry against the feudal barons, colonies, Mr. Verhofstadt, against their empires, and that is why Britain is leaving. And it doesn't matter which language you use, we are going, and we are glad to be going. We're off.